in the beginning, we got into this to really, I guess, express ourselves and create things that we like. And then along this journey, people start coming to you, telling you that, oh, like, I really love your work, and I want you to do this for me and that for me, and we kind of lose that sense of exploration and creativity that we once had when we started out. And so I think it's important to get back to that, to revisit that as often as you can.
I am Kyle with Narrative, and we are here with Mitch Lally today talking about Select and how it's beneficial for his business. Mitch, tell us about your business and what you're doing and what kind of content you make and where you're at.
Yeah, so I shoot all kinds of different stuff, mainly personal projects, and I am doing YouTube right now. So for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been creating content for YouTube, helping other photographers to improve their photography, all sorts of things, from videos like with little tips for shooting to gear reviews and things like that. And a lot of what I shoot, despite shooting a lot of different things, is portraits. So generally I will shoot quite a lot of images. When I go out onto a portrait shoot, I like to do a lot of experimentation. And so when I come back to the computer and load the files in, I've got quite a job to sort through all of them.
Your portrait work is absolutely gorgeous. Is drifting into YouTube a space for you for the sole reason of educating, or another means of revenue stream into your business, or how did that kind of all flesh out and come to be?
Yeah, so I mean, at first, I definitely just wanted to pass on the things that I had learned through the journey of photography, because before I started the YouTube channel, I had a business shooting weddings. So it was quite a big business as well. It was myself and a business partner, and then we had like 8 full-time staff and around 20 contractors. Yeah. So
that's like a photo farm. You guys are big.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Pretty much. We were like the biggest in our city, and it was a crazy journey. It was I definitely learned a lot, and so I started to make little videos on the side, sort of just explaining things that I'd learned, because I thought it would be valuable to pass those things on. And a lot of it was like technical camera stuff as well, that I, thought, hey, there isn't a video about this. I know this thing. It makes sense for me to make that. And it wasn't necessarily about a revenue stream, more so sort of, I guess just helping other people, because YouTube had helped me essentially. I learned a lot of what I know now from platforms like YouTube. So just wanting to give back, I guess. It eventually evolved into something that became a revenue stream, in that, now I sell assets, and obviously also do some kind of advertisements and stuff like that through the channel where it makes sense.
I think that giving back is one of those things that just kind of happens in the photography industry. When I started out, so many photographers gave me so much of their time or resources or just friendship in an early starting point. And then I jumped in similarly like you, and I was doing 50 or 60 weddings a year at a studio with multiple photographers. So it was kind of like baptism by volume, and just figuring out all the trials and errors through that. And now, as I've gone on and moved through the industry, I feel like I have this book of knowledge that doesn't get used as often as I'd like. And whenever anybody has an opportunity for me to sit down and give them like a rundown, mini workshop, crash course, or any kind of content like that, or any kind of conversation like that, it's so nice to be like, hey, somebody gave me all this too at some point, and I just got to pass it along, because you're figuring it out. And it's such a really cool part to be engaged with new people in the industry, is they're figuring it all out. What was the reason you started moving away from weddings and more towards just specifically portraiture work?
Yeah, so I mean, in the wedding world, it's a fantastic job. It's a fantastic career. I do highly recommend it to anyone who's trying to make photography their career. However, you're shooting for other people, like constantly shooting what other people want, and you are thinking for yourself and what you would like to create. There's always this thing where it's like, okay, will the couple like that? Will they enjoy this thing? And I guess like the goal, like what you want to aim for in wedding photography is to be able to express yourself, what you want to create, and then attract the people that also value that thing. But it's still always like a give and take, collaboration, I guess you could say. Whereas the work that I'm doing now, it's more or less like I come up with an idea or a concept, or maybe I even just go out one day and I shoot until I find something that I really like. And it's like the freedom of just being able to do whatever you want that attracted me to shooting more portraits. Yeah, it's also just fun to get out and meet people, and I really enjoy the process of it and coming up with new ideas and visiting new locations and things like that. A big thing as well for me, not just the creative side of it as well, but I guess creating a business where I don't have to be in a certain place at a certain time, like I did with weddings.
Yeah.
Especially having such a large team underneath me, it was very difficult to like have a day away from the office because there's always fires that you need to put out, so to speak, things that are going wrong, and people, you can trust people to a certain extent, but then there's problems that have to be solved that only you know how to solve.
As I've stepped away from the industry, it's this neat thing where, I mean, for about 10 years, I've always had these Saturdays, this thing that is looming in the distance that is like, you have to be in this state at this time, at this place. And it really kind of pigeonholes you. And once you start stepping away and realizing, oh, I can have a Saturday and do whatever I want and maybe just go make photos that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
It's really, it feels like it pulled a fresh breath of air into my creative spirits, just to be able to go, you know what, I just want to shoot whatever I want whenever. And sometimes it's collaborative with a model, sometimes they come in and they're nothing other than the model, and sometimes we put together a cool idea together, but more often than not, it's just kind of whatever happens and whatever comes to be. And these people that you get to meet and interact with are really great. I don't think there's anybody I've photographed that I wasn't some type of friend or really close with after the fact, because we're buddies now. Like, it's so great to have those on hand and have my friends that go, do you want to go make some pictures today? And it's such a different experience than a wedding. You're right. It's you're collaborating with a client who ultimately is their product that you're creating, and it's a totally different world. So it's nice to say, hey, the weather sucks today, I don't want to shoot.
Yeah.
Or the light's not right, we'll do it another day. So to have that power is really incredible.
That I find happens with a lot of photographers, that we in the beginning we got into this to really, I guess, express ourselves and create things that we like, and then along this journey, people start to come into the fold, telling you that, oh, like, I really love your work, and I want you to do this for me and that for me, and we kind of lose that sense of exploration and creativity that we once had when we started out. And so I think it's important to get back to that, to revisit that as often as you can.
It's nice to slowly step away from the thing and go, oh, there was a point when I enjoyed this just because I liked taking photos and making images, and somewhere along the way, money and paying rent and ordering pizza got in the way and stopped me from being able to just do it when I want. And now I can do it in the way that I want. I don't really carry a camera with me all the time. More often than not, I'm just bringing like a point and shoot camera around with my friends, because I don't want to be thinking about making stuff. I just want to document my friends, and then whatever happens after that happens, and I don't have to edit it or anything like that. Were you using Select or Come On Board or anything with narrative when you were doing your photo, like with a lot of associates and a big staff going on?
No, because in this business, essentially, as I mentioned before, I had a business partner. And so really our goal was just to play to our strengths at that point. I was shooting weddings as a photographer, but most of what I was doing was videography. So I was kind of like heading up the videography team, and he took control of the photo team and pretty much everything underneath that, including all the workflows and everything like that. And so we had somebody who was actually selecting the photos, kind of like a little pipeline. And I think at that point, this is quite a number of years ago, I really started kind of stepping away from that business in 2018. And that point, I think that they were using, it was either Bridge or Photo Mechanic. It was one of those two.
Yeah, that would track either way. If it was a while ago, Bridge would have been the main big player.
Yeah, yeah, and so I really didn't have a tool. I think I did try out Photo Mechanic, but for the most part, I was just dealing with tons of photos in Lightroom and having a really horrible time, to be honest.
Honestly, I did the same thing. I wasn't even a Photo Mechanic user myself until maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Prior to that, I just dropped everything to Lightroom and was really set on using smart previews as my way of kind of getting through things quickly. What is it that brought you into changing your workflow and trying something different?
I think in the back of my mind, I always wanted to find a tool like Select that helped me to get from that point of like dumping an SD card with thousands of photos to, okay, these are the ones that I potentially would put in a YouTube video or post on my social media. It's one of those things that it's like, oh, I should really do that, but then it's like, oh, but there's this like cost associated with it. In my head, I thought it would, I'd have to buy some software that'd be a couple $100. Then I'd have to like learn the software. There's like all these hurdles that stop, and you're like, oh, it's not painful enough right now to keep doing what I'm currently doing.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. There's so many little pieces in my own workflow pipeline that and usually from experience, when I try to jump onto a new CSM and changing over from ShootQ forever ago, it took me weeks of navigating and setting up and even hiring someone to help me through the process. It's why I avoided Photo Mechanic for so long. I went, ooh, I don't know. Is that going to be something I've got to relearn, something I've got to pay for? How many days of my energy am I going to spend doing this when I should do it in the winter? I should do it in the off season when I say, hey, I got like 2 weeks worth of work to do, but I'm going to stretch that out over 6 months because I'm lazy. Select was such a easy thing to jump into. Did you find it a pretty quick thing to throw into your fold of tools?
I think it was less than 15 minutes, honestly, where I kind of picked the whole thing up, which was really good. I'm generally pretty good with software and that kind of like learning curve. I'm usually pretty resilient when it comes to that kind of thing. It's funny you mentioned ShootQ as well, because I had a similar experience with learning that software and switching into another CRM too. And so this transition wasn't quite as painful as that, I must say. Select was really simple to understand what was going on. I think maybe because I had used Photo Mechanic in the past, but essentially just being able to load in a bunch of photos, start immediately, and just to go through each and every single one, and then hitting a key every time I find a photo that I like, and just to like blast through a gallery like that alone, just to see a full, not a full res preview, but a sharp preview that I can actually like assess and be like, okay, that's a good photo, or that's in focus. Essentially that was all I needed. And then to have all the other additional features on top of that Select has was just like a bonus.
Yeah, I think having a powerful tool that's easy to use, because as you said, like going from, I don't know what you switched to after ShootQ, but I switched to Tave at the time, and Tave is
the same as me.
Oh man, it's so powerful. Yeah. What a cool tool. But man, if you don't know anything about that world or just the Tave operation, learning tokens and how things engage with other things, they have just so many different kind of, I guess, headers basically for all their things, and it's so cool. But what a deep end of the pool to dive into, and Select is one of those tools. It's so powerful and does so much for me, but I don't have to do much for it.
That's that was like a similar experience I had from ShootQ to Tave, and then now I'm actually on Studio Ninja, which I really like. It's a little bit more simple, so I like that. I like a simple, UI.
Have you found that you're getting better gallery sets or better first selects out of it because of it?
I'm probably pretty similar to you, where I like to have options in that sense of like, I probably will cull it down even further in Lightroom, or just edit those photos and export them and maybe never decide to even do anything with them. So I do actually like having a little bit of extra room in there just in case, if for example, one of the photos, like I really like the model's expression, for example, but the background isn't so good. I might like choose another photo that's similar, but the background is different, and kind of merge those two together. So
I start pretty aspirational. I'm like, oh yeah, here's 2 or 3. I bet of these 2 or 3 it'll be great. And as soon as there's a roadblock and I go, oh man, I don't want to do any more work here. If this isn't as quick into my flow as everything else, it's gone. But it's great that you take the time. And that's probably just down to pure laziness on my end, because I'm shooting content for fun. It's stuff I'm just doing in my free time. It's almost hobby work at this point. That's just something for me to scratch that creative itch. And so there's definitely a point where I go, okay, it's turning into work now. And as soon as it turns into work, I don't really want to do it anymore. If you want to just tell us a little bit about what the gallery that we're looking at is, and as you're just kind of working through it, like what are you looking at primarily as this kind of photographer that you're hoping to get out of any of these projects that you're working on?
Yeah. So essentially, like with this shoot, I took quite a lot of photos. The light was changing quite a lot, and there are a few different like locations that I wanted to kind of play around with. And so I took a lot of photos. As you can see, there's around, I think it's like nearly 1,500 photos here. That I took.
1,512.
Yeah, so I've been able to get that down to 173, which is like pretty decent for me. I'm definitely not going to use all of those photos. I was doing a review of the Fuji X-H2S, and so I like to have more photos than I actually need in the final edit. It's nice to have those extras. Yeah, so essentially, like how I'll start is obviously with all of the photos loaded in here, and I will actually bring up this like close-up panel here. So just gives you kind of like a one-to-one view to check focus. I do pay attention to the image assessments, like the focus indicator, and whether, let's say for example, the model's eyes are open. Like I pay attention to them, but they're kind of just like a guide there for me. I noticed that you guys have recently added this filter by focus, which is really cool.
Somebody else, James, I was speaking with, he goes into his preferences and he sets it where he doesn't have any of the information on the screen for the focus assessment unless it's bad, which I think is a cool way to go about it. Be like, oh, I've already got, if it's good, I don't care, but if it's bad, I want to be alerted to it.
Yeah, essentially, I'll go through, sometimes with portrait shoots, like I actually do like the photos where the model's eyes might be closed. Maybe on the shoot I asked them to close their eyes, and so that kind of image assessment that says like, hey, the model's or the person's eyes are closed, you might not want to use this, is kind of irrelevant to me sometimes. So yeah, that's kind of one little thing, but I do really like that you have this filter by focus here, because you can just immediately exclude any photos that are like I would say below like a 7 or a 6. Tend to be kind of soft, but then sometimes like you have happy accidents, like photos that maybe the shutter speed was a little bit too slow and it can kind of look cool. So I don't like limiting the gallery too much, but select is so fast in which I can just blast through these previews and just like immediately see. It doesn't matter how good the AI gets, it'll never quite replace your own taste and your own eye and what you think people will appreciate. It can like get you to a certain place, but it just can't replace you, I guess.
Yeah, I think having something that assists me rather than attempts to replace me is the direction that I like to go creatively with my culling process.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, I think for me, probably the main thing is like speed. So just being able to like instantly like jump in and start working as soon as I get home from a shoot. That's probably like my number one priority. And then being able to see like just having like a UI that's clean and makes sense, I think is like super valuable. So Select definitely has that down.
Yeah, it's a not to knock on any of the other or call it out by any other name, but the other culling tool that we've used in the past is just not it's not pretty to look at. I mean, neither is Lightroom. Lightroom is not really an enjoyable app to open. It severely needs an update, and it's nice to have an application that's pretty. I like my UI to look nice. It's why I use certain apps or banks or things like that, is because the app looks like something I want to be in and use.
Yeah, and on the Lightroom end, I've found like a lot of people have said like, oh, Lightroom shouldn't be slow with like a lot of photos in it, but it just is. Like, when I got back from my trip to the States, I think I loaded all of my photos from that entire 2-month-long trip into Lightroom, and the thing is just so slow, and I really don't want to do the smart preview, thing. And so using Select and just importing the photos that I know that I'm going to edit is like such a big step. And it just saves so much time further down the road when you're like opening the catalog again to go back and check other photos, or just like resume your workflow. You're not like waiting for so long for everything to load up. And
yeah, it's really shaving off performance lags. I mean, like you said, if you've got a 1500 image gallery here and you pulled, what was your initial selects on your 1-star? It's like 170 something.
Yeah,
that's 1,400 images that we don't need Lightroom to even worry itself about. Yeah. Could you show us a little bit about what it looks like when you get home from a photo shoot, and what you're doing with your images, and like where they go to live?
Yeah, for sure. So I hate having photos on SD cards. So immediately, as soon as I get home, those photos from that SD card will get backed up straight away. I've got the latest MacBook. I think it's the 2021 MacBook Pro, and so it has SD card slot, which I love. And so I'll just like throw the SD card in there, and then I will immediately back up my photos to my working drive. So my working drive is actually a SanDisk SSD, and the reason that I work off an SSD is that it's fast. So it does help a little bit, like when you're pulling up your catalogs and things like that, as well as just the speed of actually being able to like load the photos on there, back the photos up. Then I will also do a second backup, and that's just something like this, which is my backup drive, and it's a mechanical hard drive. I put little labels on each one, and I write what shoots are on there. It's very helpful because I have quite a lot of these little drives. Main reason I use those for backing up is they're just inexpensive. Like, you can get a 2 terabyte drive for under 100, which is really nice. And
SSDs are still so costly, but just so beneficial for, I assume you sound like you travel a lot too, and as do I, and having a solid state drive was like a no-brainer for throwing my bags around and being on an airplane or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. So the SSD, just the fact that it's small, it's lightweight and really fast, it's my go-to for traveling. But you can't necessarily buy like 10 or 20 of those SSD drives because they are prohibitively expensive.
So expensive.
I'm looking forward to the day when they're really, really cheap to make and buy. That'll be great. But for now, I've kind of got this 2-drive system. And then my shoots aren't necessarily like sensitive. Like if I lose a shoot, I'm like probably pretty upset, but it's not the end of the world like it would be with the wedding. And so I don't have like a crazy backup. Like back when I was shooting weddings, we had like network attached storage. We had, that whole kind of setup with multiple drives, redundancies, all that kind of thing. But with, my personal work, I just like being lean and not having too much stuff going on. And so after I'm finished, like editing these photos, I've created the JPEGs from Lightroom. I will actually delete the project from my working drive just to save more space, because being an SSD, it's a little bit cheaper if you buy a smaller capacity. I had such a meticulous
or have such a meticulous data backup for weddings and forever and for so long. My personal work and stuff that didn't feel like it could be categorized or organized in the same structure really kind of got backburnered. And it's only as of maybe the last year or so that I sat down and said, okay, let's incorporate some kind of non-yearly personal data backup so that everything kind of flows into the same system that I've got in place. But prior to that, I felt the same. I went, well, these are my photos. They're not nearly as important. They can kind of get whatever I've got laying around. But I like your dual drive system. That's a good way to go about it. And just to have, like you said, just they're so cheap to have like physical drives around like that with labels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, amazing. Thank you for taking the time today to chat through this. If people are wanting to find out where you're at and where to find you and what's going on, where should people look for you? You have any workshops or presets for sale, or what's going on?
Yeah, I'm working on a online workshop at the moment, so that will be coming out later this year. However, if you want to find me, you can reach me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is just Mitch Lally, so it's just my name. Same thing goes with YouTube. If you want to check me out on my YouTube channel, it's just youtube.com/Mitch Lally. Sorry.
You can't like mess up on your own name.
I know, right? You say it so often, you should have it down, right?
I know. I feel that way when I write my name too. I go, how did I mess up? I write this every day.
I miss a letter. Yeah. So those are really the only two social platforms that I really use. So yeah, not on TikTok. So
awesome.
You can't find me there.
Same. I've never downloaded the app and I refuse.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate your time.
My absolute pleasure. It was good chatting with you.